Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. This is a special edition for you this morning. There is one URL in this one, and the URL is in the description of the video if you care to pull it up and take a look at it. It's off of naturalnews.com, and it says the communist subversion of America is nearly complete. Left-wing media has already achieved 3 out of 4 steps for Soviet-style overthrow of American society and government. For weeks, the left-wing media has been absurdly claiming that patriot websites and a Republican president-elect are working for the Russians. The truth is exactly the flip side. Democrats have been working with Russians for decades to subvert American culture, destabilize America's institutions, and overrun the U.S. government with Marxist, communist, leftist infiltrators who despise liberty and the Constitution. For example, CNN's Chris Cuomo is blatant communist sympathizer who celebrated the murderous Castro regime by claiming Castro lifted everyone up. After Castro's death, CNN talking heads gushed for days about how glorious Castro was, apparently oblivious to the mass political executions of men, women, and children committed by Castro over the decades of exploitation and tyranny. The exact words of Cuomo leave no doubt that he worships communist dictators. What is the point of this communist regime if it is not to truly make everyone equal? Not at the lowest level, not by demoralizing everyone, but by lifting everyone up. CalExit movement has already opened an embassy in Moscow. Even right now, the CalExit succession movement in California, run entirely by radical left-wing activists, has already set up an embassy in Moscow, and they're gaining support from communist collaborators in the Obama regime to fund the effort and turn California into a communist beachhead in North America. To really understand what's happening across America today, you need to watch a film called The Enemies Within. You can find it at a link here in this article if you care to pull it up and click on that. It says this powerful documentary details the communist collaborators inside the U.S. government who are right now operating as members of Congress in the U.S. Capitol. Many of them, the film reveals, could not pass an FBI background check because they have so many ties with anti-American communist groups such as Communist Party USA, Democratic Socialists of America, Workers' World Party, the Institute for Policy Studies, Council for Livable World, and other radical anti-American organizations. And there's a trailer here that you can click on and watch if you would like to see that. And it says anti-American left-wing media has achieved 3 out of 4 steps necessary for a Soviet-style overthrow of the United States. The silent coup taking place in America right now is a communist takeover being pushed by mainstream media, Hollywood, academia, and government infiltrators and subversives. Hollywood is deeply involved in the evil plot, pushing out propaganda shows like The Americans, which portrays Russian spies as heroes in America. A sci-fi show called Continuum labels anti-establishment liberty groups terrorists while portraying the strong female lead as a hero for hunting down and killing those who seek liberty. She's called a protector and works for the globalist corporate monopolists who already overthrew the government. Nearly the entire institution of Hollywood is widely infiltrated by Marxist communists and radical left-wing subversives who use television, movies, and even video games to push grotesque cultural subversion themes like transgenderism, Amazon Prime, attacks on white history, attacks on police, ESPN, attacks on males, every TV commercial, and attacks on logic and reason. Former Soviet-era deception expert Yuri Bezmenov laid out a blueprint for communist subversion of any targeted nation back in the 1980s. That blueprint looks remarkably like what Obama and the radical left just pulled off over the last 8 years, with the help of lying mainstream media and cultural subversion via movies, TV, Jon Stewart, fake news, false flags, and the overthrow of the public education system, Common Core, an anti-education indoctrination obedience scheme. Bezmenov is well known for saying the highest art of warfare is not to fight at all, but to subvert anything of value in the country of your enemy until such time that the perception of reality of your enemy is screwed up to such an extent that he does not perceive you as an enemy, and that your system, your civilization, and your ambitions look to your enemy as an alternative, if not desirable, then at least feasible. That's the ultimate purpose, the final stage of subversion, after which you can simply take your enemy without a single shot being fired. There's a video where you can watch his lecture in this if you care to watch it. Disinformation, Deception, and the Art of Subversion. To really get up to speed on this, I strongly recommend a book called Disinformation. Former Spy Chief Reveals Secret Strategies for Undermining Freedom, Attacking Religion, and Promoting Terrorism. This book starts off with detail of how President Bill Clinton seized upon the black church hate crime hoax of the 1990s to foment hatred toward whites and Christianity, perfectly following the blueprint of Soviet-style demoralization, destabilization, and subversion. The book is a tour de force of radical left-wing deception tactics being widely used today by Senator Chuck Schumer, Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, and of course Barack Obama. Almost everything they do is patterned off KGB-developed communist subversion tactics to destroy liberty and democracy while demoralizing and punishing those who believe in religion, law enforcement, or equal justice. The entire point of the Obama regime was to destroy rationality across American society and to replace it with mass mental illness, transgenderism, psychological monopolism, social engineering, obedience, anti-science, climate change propaganda, politically correct language, police, and so on. Another similar book with more modern details is called Demonic: How the Liberal Mob is Endangering America by Ann Coulter. Demonic reveals astonishing historical details of how leftists not only overthrow governments, but then they usually kill their own subversives after the takeover, having decided their own people were useful idiots to achieve the coup. The Yuri Benzimov lecture. Yuri Benzimov explains the 4 stages of subversion in his remarkable historical lecture found in a video, which is here for you to click on to watch. It says, as you'll discover from watching the video, America is currently in stage 3, crisis. That's the point where Benzimov says that if things aren't immediately reversed, the only way to get back to liberty is through military control of the country. In other words, once the minds of leftists are so polluted, Meryl Streep, indoctrinated, Matt Damon, and mentally ill, Rosie O'Donnell, or completely obliterated by radical leftist disinfo, John McCain, a rhino, and the radical left can only be defeated, says Bezimov, with military force. They're beyond the reach of education, self-realization, login, or reason of any kind. Their minds have been obliterated by communist Marxist programming and social engineering. Does anyone doubt, after observing the complete insanity of the radical left today, that most of those people are beyond reason? They've been so mind-controlled by communist Marxist leftist propaganda that they will never accept ideas rooted in liberty. Rush Limbaugh calls them a special kind of stupid, and Michael Savage calls them mentally ill. In truth, it's actually a combination of stupidity, indoctrination, mental illness, and delusional paranoia. But in a greater sense, all of these leftists are victims of propaganda. Their minds have been taken over by a cultural and institutional subversion. This is all deliberate. P.S. Also watch this incredible interview with Yuri Benzimov by G. Edward Griffin. The video looks like it's from the 1980s. It's just astonishing what you'll learn about cultural subversion in this video. Obama's last 8 years were ripped right out of the KGB subversion playbook. I've carefully watched the Benzimov video, and you should too, taking the following notes. As you read these notes, notice how perfectly this matches with the agenda of Obama and the radical left, including the transgender push. the attacks on Christianity, the complete obliteration of public education, and the vilification of law enforcement. These are bullet points that I'll go through here. It says espionage only occupies 10 to 15% of time, money, and manpower activities of the KGB. The other 85% of the KGB activity is subversion. The aim is to destroy the country of your enemy. Subversion activity is overt and easily observable. According to Western laws, subversion is not a crime. Subverters are exchange student diplomats and actors. Subversion is a two-way activity. The enemy must be willing to be subverted. You cannot subvert the Soviet Union because the borders are closed. Subversion can only be successful when the agent of subversion has a responsive target. The USA is a receptive target of subversion. Sun Tzu was the first expert in subversion in ancient China. He said it is inefficient to fight on the battlefield. The basics of subversion are taught to every student of the KGB in the USSR. The 4 stages of subversion from Yuri Benzimov, Soviet KGB subversion expert. 1 is demoralization. It takes 15 to 20 years to demoralize a society. It includes influencing, propaganda, etc. of various areas where public opinion is shaped: religion, educational systems, social life, administration, law enforcement systems, military and labor employee relations. Exploit the people within the society who are ideologically opposed to the system. Use small groups of agents from foreign nations. Distract people from real faith and replace it with artificial faith in other systems. In education, distract them from learning something constructive, pragmatic, and efficient. Instead of mathematics, chemistry, history, teach them sexuality, home economy, anything to distract. In social life, replace traditionally established institutions with fake organizations. Take away the initiative from people. Take away the natural links between individuals and replace them with bureaucratically controlled systems. Establish social workers institutions ruled by bureaucracy. Eliminate the family and replace the main concern with paycheck from the government. In government, replace the elected officials with unelected bureaucrats who control the people. In the major media like the New York Times, you don't have to be an excellent journalist. You have to be exactly a mediocre journalist. For the power structure, it's slowly eroded by those who do not have qualifications nor the will of the people. Law enforcement, put into place a slow substitution of basic principles where someone who used to be criminal is now considered a victim. Labor relations, destroy the traditional established links of bargaining between employer and employee. Obedient workers follow their leaders. Democracy is not a system of equality. It's a system where diverse people of different backgrounds have the chance to compete and thrive. Destabilization. Destabilize all the accepted institutions and organizations of your enemy. There is no crime if a professor introduces a course of communism or Marxism into a California college. The radicalization of negotiations between labor and employers, normalizing violent protests. The media places itself in opposition to society to alienate the people. Subversive sleepers are now leaders in society and actively include themselves in the political process. Now homosexuals make it a political issue to demand human rights and investigate violent clashes. Black against white. It doesn't matter. It's about creating antagonistic clashes. This is destabilization. The sleepers are KGB agents. They become leaders to destabilize the targeted nation. Thus, the agent is already a respected citizen of the United States. He even gets money from the government for his struggles labeled human rights. Crisis. The process starts when the legitimate bodies of power cannot function anymore. Instead, artificial bodies are injected into society, such as non-elected committees. They claim power on how to run your life. If power is denied them, then they take it by force. They are often half-baked intellectuals from Harvard or somewhere, and they think they know the answers to social problems. The population at large is looking for savior to solve the crisis that has been artificially created. They call for They call for socialist government, centralized power. A savior is needed. The savior is then provided as the foreign nation or the sleeper agents. They call it a revolution. They say, I will lead you. The two alternatives here are 1, civil war, and 2, invasion. Normalization. This stage is to make the subversion results seem normal to the people. Your country is normalized. At this point, the workers don't demand revolution anymore. This is stabilizing the country by force. Activists, liberals, social workers, homosexuals, professors, and Marxists are being eliminated because they are not needed anymore. The new owner needs stability to exploit the nation and take advantage of the victory. The Marxists shoot their own revolutionaries. Once the subverted culture is normalized, the only way to reverse the course of the country is through military intervention. The simplest answer against subversion is to start it before the demoralization stage, bring back religion to restore stability to society, halt cultural Marxism from marching forward. As part of the normalization, allow the criminals to have civil rights and bring crisis to the country. Do not allow them to take political power. Do not elect them into power. It must be driven into the heads of American voters that a person like that is the enemy of the state. Restriction of certain freedoms would prevent sliding into crisis. To curb unlimited power, the trade unions would save the economy from collapse. To introduce a law to stop private companies of raping public opinions in the direction of consumerism. No company must have the right to force you into buying more unless you want to. Inflation is the easiest thing to reverse. Restrict the import of propaganda. The unrestrained import of Soviet journalists has to be stopped. They won't be offended. They will respect America more. My colleagues appear on Nightline, and Ted Koppel asked him, what do you think? What can he think? He's propaganda mouthpiece for the Soviet Empire. The process of demoralization will not start at all if the country prevents the importation of the foreign ideology. You don't have to shoot every foreigner, but when he offers you junk in the disguise of shiny something, you have to tell him, no, we have our own junk. If the country is strong enough to stop the importation of ideas which are foreign, then the whole chain of subversion can be prevented. Many societies throughout history collapsed the moment they lost religion. The idea of human beings as intelligent, moral agents of God can prevent collapse, but all the technology and computers will not prevent collapse. No one will no one will fight to defend 2 + 2 = 4, but millions will fight to protect God and religious faith. The answer to ideological subversion is very simple. You don't have to shoot people. You simply have to have faith and prevent subversion, not be a victim of subversion. Strike not with force, but with the superiority of your intellect. So there you have the special edition this morning. I put you out 3 episodes of the current events for today, so you have a little bit to listen to there. And if you enjoy what we're doing, give me a thumbs up. Share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. Don't forget to subscribe and click that little bell beside the subscribe button and check that box so you get an email message every time I put a show up. That will keep you informed. We'll see you later.